Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your January 2025 AstroTarot scope with me, Raphael from Reydiant Reality. I just want to say a massive thank you so much for your patience. So I got so many messages, so many emails, so many DMs from you guys to say, Raph, where are you going? What's going on? So I did say I would be bringing these back. I want to make sure that I can be completely and totally fair with my community, and I also want to make sure that I continue to show up for you guys, just like you show up for me. So with that said, before we start, as always, I would like to bless my decks of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise, and they help you on your path to your highest vibrational good. Now, the first transit that I'm going to talk about has technically passed, right? So if you're watching this on the day that it comes out, this transit will have passed. However, it is worth mentioning that the first transit that I'm going to talk about, which is the opposition between Mars and Pluto across your 3rd, 9th house axis, it's an important one. And the reason being is because this pass of this transit is the second in a series of 3. Right, we've already had the first one. This is the second pass because of the retrogradation of Mars, and we're going to have the third one later on this year. So obviously I wanted to make sure that I spoke about this because it has the potential to be disruptive. It has the potential to be somewhat explosive, right? We're talking about Mars and Pluto after all. So we've got Pluto in your 3rd house. 3rd house is actually really good for research. It's a really, because it's a mind house, right? This is your mind, your communications, your conversation style. Now that Pluto's in your 3rd house for real, right, for the next 19 years, you might find, or you may have found, that surface level communication and conversations and things that just seem a little bit more trivial or a little bit more sort of like work a day, you're just like, oh, do you know what a pile of bollocks. Do you know what I mean? You might be feeling now that you're really being called to talk about things that are deep, to really get intense about, studying subjects. The 3rd house is a school house as well. It may also be that you start to really uncover what's going on in your local neighborhood, what's going on in the place that you live. We all talk about, and obviously yours is a sign that loves travel, right? We all talk about travel and seeing the world and seeing all these different places. But the truth is, 9 out of 10 people don't know shit about their own front yard, right? Or their own backyard or the area that they live in. Go and explore where you live. You've got Pluto in the 3rd house. You might get really deeply into this at this time. And it may also be that people are receiving you as quite intense when you're speaking. Now, on top of that, you've got Mars, the planet of excitation, irritation, passion, war, and, even anger and conflict in the sign of Leo. And it's retrograde, which is something that Mars doesn't really like to do, in that 9th house. In a lot of ways, I feel like this is you starting to understand where your belief structure and belief system needs to change. Now, because Mars is a severing and a releasing energy, and it's in the 9th house, which is a house that you have a lot of affinity with, and it's also a fellow fire sign, this is trining to, the sun is actually here. I like to put it in the sign that I'm talking about because often, I'll say the wrong sign, and then people are like, you said the wrong sign, throw the reading in the trash. Do you know what I mean? So just to kind of highlight that. But the sun actually at this point that you're seeing this, unless you're watching it very late in the month, the sun will be in Capricorn at the moment, in your 2nd house of money. Now, that being said, Mercury is coming back to the tail end of your sign. So, because obviously we had the Mercury retrograde. Now, this opposition that's taking place between Mars and Pluto in that 3rd, 9th house axis. Mars is retrograde in your 9th of belief, travel, higher learning, and it might bring conflicts related to your worldview. And it also, with Pluto in the 3rd house, this is the communication intensifies at this time. And it's like your process of sharing your thoughts becomes that much more tense. And maybe that the conversations that you're having as a result sort of feel a bit more stressed or a bit more strained. While it can be a frustrating energy, it's also time for you to break free from any limiting beliefs. You might talk this out with a friend, right? 3rd house is friends, 9th house is teachers, mentors, coaches and gurus. You might have a conversation with somebody and they really challenge, and sorry to say, no, I'm going to say this. Shade men, I love my Sagittarians. I get on really well with Sagittarius people. Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius moon. I love Sag people. And we tend to have a real giggle. But I'll be honest, you guys have very strong opinions and very strong beliefs. And there are times where it's nice to see those checked for you, right? And I mean this for myself as well. I'm not a Sag, I could never be that cool. But the reason I say this is because when our beliefs are checked, when our thought processes and our, biases are sort of brought up to us, we then have to really observe and examine whether those are actually things that we believe or whether it's just part of our programming. And this is a chance where somebody could really challenge a belief of yours. And it's not about being rude to say like, oh, your religion is trash or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. And if you feel that that's what's happening, woe betide the person that's doing it. What I'm talking about here is like a genuine somebody pushing you to really question what you feel, what you think, what you believe, to see if you actually believe it anymore. It will require some courage to really go deep, but I think it could be great for you. Now you've got this with the Ace of Pentacles to clarify. You've got this with the Eight of Cups. Okay, that's very interesting. And you've got this with the Tower card. Now, although this isn't an eclipse that we're talking about, what I have noticed is when we have sort of big activations of the third house and the ninth house, these are things that can trigger a move, that can trigger a change of location. Sometimes it's a change of work. When I've seen big activations in the third and the ninth, I've seen people who, like, let's say you work for somebody else, I've seen people's literal companies move the building or say, you know what, we're packing up shop here and we're moving the head office to the other side of the country. All kinds of interesting stuff can happen. With the reason I mention this is because the Ace of Pentacles can be a new home or a new location. It can also be a new job. You've got this with the Eight of Cups, and then you've also got the Tower. I would not be surprised, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're all going to suddenly just up sticks and walk out of your job between the 1st and the 3rd/4th of January. What it does mean, though, is that there may be an event or an experience that happens that sees you say to yourself, yeah, you know what, my days here are numbered because I won't tolerate that BS. And good for you, right? Fair play. Own yourself. Claim yourself. Don't ever, I'm not that I need to tell a Saggy. Don't ever let anyone tell you nothing. I have to say, I think Sagittarius is the one sign that I think might be more opinionated than Aquarius. And Aquarius is my sun sign, so I can throw shade at them. So the next transit that I want to explore for you is on the 3rd of January. Venus, the lady of luck, pleasure, romance, joy, creativity, and your values, money, luxury is coming into the 4th house or into the sign of Pisces where she's exalted. Venus does good work here, and she's bringing a soothing or healing balm to your home and family life. What I really like about this, though, is if you've had sort of frayed, if the stuff that's happened on a mind and a communicative level has created some frayed emotions, that Venus in the 4th is going to calm the anxiety, right? It's going to really put okay, let's take this down for a moment. It could also be a time where you're connecting to your family or gaining more pleasure or joy from the people that you live with or your family in general. It could also, because it's the 4th house, this is hidden wealth or hidden underground. Venus is money. So money, luxury, gifts, presents could come from family or family members at this time. What I really like about this as well is because Venus for you, so in your chart, Venus rules your 11th house of benefactors, friends and gains from your business. And Venus also rules, where are you? Taurus, which for you is your 6th house. I really like this for you finding, maybe buddying up with a friend, or working with or connecting or collaborating with somebody either that you work with, but it's like you take the connection out of the workplace and it helps you forge a nice bond that helps you feel supported in some way. It's also possible that, because the 6th house is indicated, maybe you start a health regime right now and it's like you're emotionally resolute or invested in this. Venus gives you the emotional sort of support and stability of scaffolding internally to really approach something you know, on that 6th house level, but it's like you've got somebody to do this with. You've got like what I would consider like healthy competition. Be open to messages, you know, from all over the family at this time as well, because they could be really supportive. Now, that being said, remember, Venus is going to go retrograde later on, like the 2nd of March. So even though she's not in shadow yet, she won't reach shadow until the end of the month. But the second half of January, pay attention to what's showing up for you in that last 2 weeks of this transit, because she leaves on, like, I think it's like the 1st of Feb. Pay attention to this, because at this point you're going to be getting a heads up as to what that Venus retrograde is actually going to be about for you. So for this, you've got the Sun card. Wow. Okay, beautiful. Looks like you're sailing through this one with the Judgment card. Beautiful. And the Three of Wands. If there were, even though this is a transit that's speaking to your home, your family, your property, etc., where you live and all the rest of that good stuff, I would not be surprised if a lot of you are doing what is considered like an exploratory trip. Maybe you're looking at a different place and thinking about where you want to live. Maybe you're paying a lot more attention to the local area, as I said earlier. It could also be that some of you are starting to think about a home-based business, something that you can do for yourself working from home. Look, I'm going to say this to you. I started working from home in 2018, so long before the pandemic even hit, right? Well, I say long, but I was already adapted and adjusted for it. And I'll be honest, it's not for everybody, because it does take a lot of discipline and a lot of focus, which is why everywhere else in my life is a mess. I jest, right? And it does take a lot of that. But if you are serious about this transit could kickstart this for you. Now, remember, Venus is going to go retrograde from the 2nd of March and all the way into April. So if you're going to do this, my advice would be to wait until April, the tail end of April onwards, to initiate this, because you could initiate it now, and with these cards it says it starts and it goes really, really well, but then Venus is going to go retrograde, and so you might run into some challenges there with that. All right, but all in all, the Sun card with the Judgment card, this is a moment of personal illumination. It's also a moment of spiritual awakening, and you've got this with the Three of Wands. It will be on or through some kind of travel, in particular in your local environment. I personally feel that something occurs to you and it really wakes you up in a way where you say, fuck, you know what? Actually, I can do this for myself, or I can support myself in this way. It just takes a little bit more navigation. And Venus is there saying, you know what? Go for it. If it brings you peace, honey, it's worth the price as far as I'm concerned. This is one of the reasons I was like, fuck this, I'm out. I can't be doing with this working for other people's business anymore. Now, with that said, remember your 2025 AstroTarot scopes are up and out there for your purchasing pleasure. You can grab those on the link in the description box below. And on the 8th of January, I will be releasing slots. So I'm not doing any Zoom work. I won't be doing anything like that. All of my current offerings are recordings, because I've got a lot of things that I'm working on behind the scenes to bring you guys. I'm really excited about. But on the 8th of the month, on the 8th of January, I will be releasing a certain amount of slots to work with me via Zoom. It's going to be a 2.5 to 3 hour session where we're going to plan your year using your correspondences. I'm really, really excited about this, so stay tuned for that. And then, as if that wasn't enough, at the end of the month, I'll be releasing the next round of 10 slots. There's only 10 of work with me for 3 months, right? And my last round of coachees was phenomenal. They were just absolutely incredible. They blew me away. They really did. So if you want to work with me for 3 months, you know, if you want me to help see you through this crazy Q1 period, this is the time to sign up. All right, so, and that will be coming at the end of the month. Stay tuned to my socials. If you're not on socials, pay attention to the YouTube community tab, because I always post my offerings there as well. Now, on the 6th of the month, On the 6th of January, Mars is going to retrograde back into the sign of Cancer, right there back into your 8th house. Mars returning to the 8th house of transformation, shared resources, emotional depths. It's bringing any unresolved issues or challenges to the surface. Now for you, Mars rules your 12th house and it also rules your 5th house, right? So past romances, past lovers, past partners could come up for you at this time, but you could also use this time to cleanse out. Like if you've had a past relationship recently that's come to an end, or maybe not even recently, but it still lingers, it still causes, you know, moments of PTSD or whatever that come up for you, this could actually be a really wonderful time for you to rid yourself of that. Mars also rules, being the ruler of that 12th house, it might feel like a really deep dive into your own inner world, right? Where you're starting to really examine the mark that certain things, places, people, or experiences have left on you. It's a really great time to address financial matters like debts, shared resources. Avoid making any major purchases until Mars goes direct. You know, it could be the removal of a debt as well, right? Remember, Mars is a severing or a removal kind of energy. Now, on an emotional level, it's inviting you to release old wounds or potentially even toxic patterns that are tied to intimacy, that are tied to trust, decluttering your emotional space or engaging in some kind of spiritual practice. Now, the 8th house is more like the occult, so it's like the 9th house is more like religious or spiritual practices, whereas the 8th house is more the exploration of the unknown and the unseen, right? So Mars in there could really bring an energy of passion towards learning something like tarot, astrology, numerology, the I Ching, or at least just understanding yourself at a deeper level through what I love to call the spiritual sciences. All right, use this energy to let go of what's really not serving you and to build a stronger foundation for your future. You know, it's not an easy transit, but it's definitely going to be worth navigating. So for this, you've got the King of Wands, right? You've got this with the Queen of Wands, okay, and you've got this with the Queen of Pentacles. So two queens represent sincere friends. It's possible that a friend could really help you see something from a different perspective. It may also be that a friend helps you understand that while you might be experiencing something difficult, actually what you really need to observe is how far you've come on your journey. It's almost like, because the King of Wands is about visibility, and it's also about you know, the work that you've put in, you know, and celebrating that work. And the Queen of Wands is, you know, first of all, it's benefactors and people that can help or support us, but it can also represent our boundaries, right? And the King of Pentacles, King of Wands with the Queen of Wands, that's a couple, or, you know, so let's say you've got a sister who has a husband. Maybe they both give you a really good talking to, but it actually really helps you. Let's say your parents sit you down and say, look, you know, we're worried about you because ... It's like information or realization that comes through conversation with people that genuinely care for you, but they're helping you see something from a different perspective. So while you might be sort of in the mire of it all, it's like somebody or someone or someone sit you down and say, listen, you've come a really long way. Let's observe, let's examine exactly where you've been on the story or the journey that you've experienced so far. I actually really love this. I love the Queen of Pentacles as well. She's one of my, out of all of the court cards, the Queen of Pentacles is one of my faves. So love that. All right, so the final transit that I want to explore for you is on the 12th of the month. Now, I can't show you the South Node because it went up the Hoover. So frustrating. So that's the North Node right there, right? And that's the North Node. And then let's, just for visualization, that will be the South Node, right? The nodes are shifting into the signs of Pisces and Virgo, which for you represents the eclipses moving into your 4th and 10th house axis. If you've been with me long enough, you will have heard me say The 4th, the 10th, the 1st and the 7th, these ones tend to play out very viscerally. We really feel them. The North Node is what we're obsessed by, what we're being pulled powerfully to, what we feel like a driving compulsion to go towards. And the South Node is what we feel repulsed by, or what we feel being repelled or removed or released out of our life, or what we no longer resonate with. And so what happens is you get this dynamic sort of push and pull between the two. Your home and family and living situation might be pulling you in one way, and your career, your social status, or your need to create a legacy for yourself is pulling you in another direction. Now, the trick of the polarity is wherever the North Node goes, this is where you're sort of being encouraged to learn new things, to do new things, and incorporate more of that in your life. So that nodal shift activating this 4th, 10th house axis is highlighting career versus home. The North Node in Pisces in your 4th house is asking you to focus on not only your emotional foundations, but also to trust your intuition when it comes to your living situation, your family dynamics, and anything that might be playing out in those areas. It's a time for you to create a sense of peace and harmony in your private life. It's a time where you might be yearning to have more of what feels like a sanctuary, something that feels like it is, a really safe space to retreat to, because that's what your home should be. Right? And I don't care who you are. I'm not saying one person's better than another or any of that stuff. But what I am saying is, if the place that you live is not that sanctuary for you to shut the curtain, shut the door and say, fuck the world for a minute, get the fuck out of there and find a place that will give you that experience. If it's not bringing you peace, if it doesn't feel like a shelter or a sanctuary from the world, it's not your home. All right, period, bottom line of it. And trust me, as somebody who moved, obviously now you guys know I bought my house and I'm humbled, and gosh, I can't even tell you how many happy, grateful tears I've cried over this place. As somebody who moved, at one point I moved 12 times in the space of 10 years, right? As somebody who knows what it is to have your home life continuously disrupted, having been made homeless in 2013 and bouncing around from place to place to place, I can assure you, when you if home isn't settled, the entirety of your life is up in the air. Right? So, I mean, you guys tend to be a bit more nomadic than most, but even still, you need a sanctuary, and that North Node in the 4th is going to pull you towards that. And then that South Node in Virgo in the 10th house, right? Virgo's about service. And what's really interesting to me is this 10th house is about your legacy out in the world. So whatever your service or your legacy is to the world, that South Node might be you releasing perfectionism around these things, but it might also be you saying, actually, I don't need to be in the public eye. Actually, you know what? My idea of what my legacy was going to be now looks vastly different. It might be a time for you to start detoxing your professional life. Maybe you're letting go of the need to prove your worth to, via external achievements and things like, that aren't really you in some way. Trust that by finding by finding the balance between what you need on your internal world and what is being expected of you in the external world, you can find a more aligned, sort of fulfilling path for yourself. And what's really interesting is, if you think back to the conversation that the cards were saying you were going to have, it looks like the universe is already covering this base for you. So for this, you've got the Hierophant card. So this is about establishing yourself with the Six of Swords and moving into a space where things are not only more aligned, but easier. And then you've got the Seven of Cups. Honestly, this is about simplifying your process. And with the Hierophant card here, you got to get organized in these areas, right? It's not enough just that you're going to have changes and eclipses in this 4th house, 10th house axis. You're being asked to get really very organized around what you're doing. It's not going to cut it to wing it here, Saggies. You're going to have to make sure you've got a solid plan of organization in place, because otherwise it's just going to blur the lines. Okay, so let's have a look at your lunations on the, where are you, Luna? She's over here. On the 13th of the month, we're going to have a full moon in the sign of Cancer, which for you represents your 8th house again. So this full moon is conjunct Mars, sextile Uranus, and trine to the North Node and Neptune. That's a lot of energy, right? It's an 8th house of transformation, shared resources, emotional depth, bringing healing and release. Remember, because the moon is conjunct Mars, and that Mars retrograde is stirring up any sort of frustration around intimacy, power dynamics as well. It could be that something's revealed to you around these things at this time, or maybe even a financial idea or endeavor comes to light and you think, yeah, actually, now that I see that as it is, it really, the full moon is a spotlight, right? It's a culmination point. It's highlighting something to you where you see it in the clear light of day. And conjunct that Mars retrograde, this might be where you say, okay, now that I see that, I'm getting rid of it. I don't want to be attached or tied to it anymore. This time, and it's also a time for you to release toxic attachments or patterns that might have been holding you back. Now that Uranus in the 6th house, could be potentially around your habits, your routines. There might be unexpected changes that really shift your perspective in some way. Use this for transformation and healing, especially in your emotional and your financial life. And remember that 8th house is your deep psychological makeup as well. You got this with the gate 28 and possible, and the message behind this card is it's only impossible until it's done, right? So what this suggests to me is what you think is not a possibility, the universe is going to say to you, well, if you shift your perspective and you let go of this, actually there's more than enough space to welcome that in. And then on the 29th of the month, you'll have the new moon in the sign of Aquarius. Now, this for you plays out in your 3rd house again. So we talked about the 3rd house earlier, but it's bringing a chance to set new intentions around communication, around learning, around interaction with your local area, or maybe seeking out a new local area. It's a really great time to set intentions using writing in specific, teaching, strengthening your connections with those around you as well at this time. Opportunities to collaborate and to share your ideas, potentially with a partner at this time as well might come up. And the connection to because this new moon is in a trine to Gemini, right? So this is lovely because it's trining your 7th house. This is a time of open communication. Set intentions around that as well. Open communication with the partner so that we can overcome any challenges that we might have, or that may arise later on if you don't have any now, right? So forward thinking. Part of fortune suggests blessings through communication or partnerships, maybe even through siblings, right? If you've ever thought about working with or alongside a sibling. Now for this, you've got the gate 54 and ambition. This is a money card, right? So whatever's shaping up for you around this new moon, you might be able to spin it into gold in some way. With that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Have a fantastic week. Let me know in the comments, month, should I say. Let me know in the comments how it shapes up. These are here to stay. Have a fantastic month, and I will see you soon. Take care.